I'm Crista Cowan. I'm the corporate genealogist here at Ancestry. Some of you may know me as the Barefoot Genealogist. You can find me around the internets by that moniker. And I've been with Ancestry for 20 years. I've been a professional genealogist for almost 25 years. And I have been doing family history since I was a kid. And so in my time as a genealogist, I have amassed a fairly large amount of information in my family tree. And one of the challenges that happens is that we have to start managing that information. So one of the reasons that Ancestry Pro Tools exists is to help us manage the information in our family tree in such a way that it allows us to make new discoveries. What we're going to be talking about today is specifically Ancestry Pro Tools. So if you're new to family history, you're welcome to stay and participate and kind of learn about some things. But this is particularly for those of you who've been around for a little while and you've got these big family trees and you want to be able to really dig into that data and make some new discovery. So we're going to cover a few things in our time together today. I'm going to show you all of the different pro tools that exist on Ancestry and what you get with that. We're going to talk about different views. We're going to talk about error checkers. We're going to talk about enhanced shared matches. I'm going to show you all of those things on my own personal account. Before I dive into that, I want to explain to you a little bit about why Ancestry has set up Pro Tools the way that we have. So Ancestry has had free family trees on Ancestry since at least 2005, 2006. And that is a free service. Anybody can build a tree on Ancestry. You do not have to have a subscription. You can use it as your storage space. You can use it as your research space. What your subscription pays for is the access to the historical record collections on Ancestry. Now, we're not going to talk about that a lot today, but 60 billion records from 88 countries around the world, more than 15 billion records added just in the last 4 or 5 months alone. Like the amount of records and the rate at which new records are coming online means our discoveries and the opportunity to make those discoveries is really speeding up. So tree building is free. Historical record access is what your subscription pays for. And that's kind of been Ancestry's traditional business model for almost 2 decades. However, we wanted to start adding some additional functions and features and functionality to the website. And one of those things is this suite of Pro Tools. And so it costs an extra subscription. So if you have a US subscription, or if you have a Canadian record subscription, whatever family history level of subscription you have, you can then just add on Pro Tools for a few extra dollars a month. Of course, if you don't have any subscription at all, you're still welcome to continue building your family tree and using the 1,000+ free databases of records on Ancestry. So that's just right off the top why we did this, why it's structured the way it is, and how you gain access. Let's go ahead then and dive into the actual what is in Pro Tools, and then we'll walk through several of those individually. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. And hopefully everybody can see my screen. Here we go. Okay. From the home page on Ancestry, if you have Pro Tools, you're going to have this little widget over here on the right-hand side that is a list of Pro Tools shortcuts. And when you click More Pro Tools, it will take you to the page that looks like this. So this is the Pro Tools page where you can see what all of the different features are that you get with Pro Tools. Like I said, we'll be walking through these. So for the half of you that don't have Pro Tools yet, you're going to be able to see exactly what they look like and how they work on my account. For the half of you that do have them, there might be some features here you didn't even know existed. And so hopefully this introduction will give you a little bit more value for the subscription that you're paying. Now, we're going to start with the different tree views, the different ways that you can view your data. And like I said, I'm going to be using my actual family tree on my actual account. So this is my family tree. And just going to give it a second to load. Sometimes when I'm on Zoom, it takes it a minute. There we go. Okay. This is what we call pedigree view or horizontal view of your family tree. Everybody has this. Again, this is part of all the free features available. You yourself, your parents, your grandparents, and so on, marching your way back through time. This top little icon over here on the top left-hand side is where you switch between different kinds of tree views. And anything that is just a view is going to be available to you, and anything that says Pro next to it are going to be the different views that require Pro Tools. Vertical view, of course, takes your family tree, flips it on its head, allows you to see all the siblings and aunts and uncles and cousins. You can kind of expand and explore your tree that way. The fan view is a little bit unique. It's available to everyone. However, Pro Tools subscribers get an extra few features in the fan. So for example, let me just center that there. If you are a Pro Tools subscriber, you have extra generations available to you. So the basic fan chart available to everyone is just a simple, I think, 4 or 5 generation pedigree or a fan view, pedigree view. But Pro Tools users can expand that up to 7 generations. Now, here's one of the reasons why I love the fan view, especially at this amount of generations, is because you can very quickly see where the holes are in my family tree. So it's a really quick and easy way to start researching or to know where to jump into your research. Just flip into this fan view setting, set it to 7 generations. Now, the other features available for Pro Tools have to do with what the heat map is that you can see. So up to 7 generations, and then you can see which branches of your family tree have hints. The darker it is, the more hints there are. The lighter it is, the fewer hints there are. You can see things like photos. So again, it's a heat map. The darker it is, the more photos and documents you have attached to that person that you've uploaded. The lighter it is, the fewer there are. And then the same thing with sources. So that's the fan view and some of the advanced features there. We'll get to the list in just a minute, but I do want to jump directly to charts and reports. Charts and reports are just some basic different ways to look at your family tree and that family history data. Now, I'm single and I have no children. So when I look at a family group sheet, it's just me. But I could look at what is called an Onentafel report. Onentafel just takes your family tree and puts it into generations. And again, with Pro Tools, I can go up to 7 generations of information in a report style format of the people in my family tree. And with Pro Tools, there's some additional little formatting if you want to print it out because you're putting it into a notebook or a binder or sharing it with family members in some kind of printed format. We've got some different ways you can do that. So there are descendancy reports. So that's you can pick an ancestor and do a report that shows all of their descendants. This Onentafel report, which is you pick a starting person and you show the generations of their ancestors. Register style is another kind of ancestry report. And then those family group sheets where it will show the parents and the children in a single family unit. So those are the different charts and reports that are currently available. There could be more coming at any point, and we're kind of excited about that opportunity or that option. There's always more that we can offer, but kind of prioritizing that is the challenge always. So if you've got suggestions about any of the Pro Tools, on most of the pages, if you scroll down to the bottom, you're going to see a feedback link. And if you click that feedback link and let us know what other types of things you would like to see in this section of the website, we would love to hear from you about those things. So if there are other kinds of reports you would like to see generated, we certainly want to hear that. So this is the charts and reports section. Again, it was developed in response to a lot of Ancestry customers who were asking for ways to print out the information from their family tree, ways to share that, and you can download, print, or share any of these reports. They're going to download in a PDF format, and that's how you can then share that via email. You can send it out to family members. You can post it personally in, a personal website or other places. So lots of different ways I've seen people use charts and reports. Now, personally, I have gone almost entirely paperless. So this is just one of those features that I don't use as much for printing purposes, but I do love it for the views that I can get. So for example, one of the things that I was trying to figure out the other day was how many of my 3 times great-grandparents I had identified, how many of my 4 times great-grandparents I had identified, and being able to just quickly throw it into this format where everybody's enumerated by or listed by generation. I could just quickly count them up. So for me, it was about accessing the data and understanding where my family tree had grown to or not grown to. So if you are currently in the chat, here's what I would love to have you share in the chat. Or if you are watching the recording of this later on YouTube or elsewhere, please in the comments, let me know this. If you've got Pro Tools and you've used these charts and reports, do you have a favorite one? And what kinds of things are you using charts and reports for? I really am curious because, I get into a little bit of a rut sometimes with my workflow and my habits of how I do family history, but I always love to hear from other people about how they're using some of these features, because then maybe I will learn something new. I often do. So feel free to drop that in the chat so that you can share and see with each other. While you're doing that, I'm going to hop over here to the Q&A and just see if there is anything, again, specifically about this. Now, remember, like today's topic is Ancestry Pro Tools. I'm seeing lots of questions about things not Ancestry Pro Tools related, so I'm just going to skip past most of those and see if... Let's see what we got here. Okay, so Deb is asking a really great question. She says, if you use Ancestry at a public library or a university or institution where you have free access to Ancestry, can you use Pro Tools? So the answer is no. And here's why, Deb. When you build a tree on Ancestry, it has to be in a personal account, meaning you're logging in with your own email address and password. When you use Ancestry at a library, you're using an institutional account. There's nothing, all the personalization has been stripped out. You can't build your own tree. You can't have your DNA results, right? You can't access personal information on a library account. And Pro Tools has to be applied to a tree, which means it has to be on a personal account. So that's kind of the difference between those free institutional accounts that you might use at a library or university and a personal Ancestry account. Okay, Karen has a question about the fan chart, and her question is, can I create it from anybody in the tree, or does it have to be the home person? No, you can create it from anyone in the tree. As a matter of fact, let's go right back to my tree. And I'll just show you, Karen, very quickly how to do that. So if I go into the tree or the fan view here, and right now I'm the home person, so it's centered on me. But let me get my Q&A window out of the way. There we go. Okay, but I could click on any person in this tree. So I could click on my great-grandma Mary, and I could say view her tree. And now it's going to put her in that center spot. And now what we're viewing is her fan chart. So you can view anybody as what we call the focus person. So the home person is the person when you click this home button over here in your toolbar, it's going to jump automatically to them. That's the home person in the tree. But the focus person is the person whose tree view you're viewing at the moment. And in this case, it's my Grandma Mary. If I switch to a different view of the tree, she remains as the focus person. So now you can see I am viewing her as the focus person, and it's her pedigree. Or if I switch to vertical, it's going to flip the family tree on its head. She's going to be in the bottom at the center. It's going to show her children and her parents. It's going to take it a second to load because I'm on Zoom. There we go. Okay. So here are her children and their spouses. I could click down and view her grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Here are her siblings and their spouses. Here are her parents and their siblings, right? So because she is currently the focus person. And you can do that on any of those tree views, horizontal, vertical, fan, or any of the charts and reports. You can decide who it is that's the current focus person and build that from there. So it's just a different way to view the data in your tree. It's a great question, Karen. Thank you for asking it. We always want to make sure people understand how to kind of maneuver around the chart. Okay, let's see if there's any other quick questions about charts and reports. Bill wants to know if there's an easy way to just automatically generate a family group sheet for every person in the tree. No, you do have to intentionally select the people you want to create family group sheets for and create them one at a time. But use that feedback button. That might be an interesting enhancement request. Robert's asking, can I control the content of any of the reports? So currently the reports are static, meaning the only thing you can really select is the name of the focus person who you're starting the report with. Let me just show you. So here's the Onondaga report. The starting person is now my great-grandma Mary. I can select how many generations I want, and I can select just the document style for whatever printing I want to do. And then up here, I can increase or decrease the font size, depending on how much I want to fit on how many pages. Beyond that, there's not additional controls. So for an Onondaga report, it's just going to give you their name and birth date in place, death date in place. It's not going to give you all their life facts. It's not going to, like, an Onondaga report serves a very specific purpose. So we've kind of fixed the data that's going to be available in this particular view. Again, if you think you want more information or different kinds of reports for different purposes, give us that feedback. We would love to hear that. Now, before we leave reports and I jump over to another view, I just do want to say that from this page and from any of the other tree views, you can get to the profile page of any of these people. So I can click on the names. These are clickable links, and it will open up in a new tab the profile page of that person in my tree. And I can work directly on them. Then I can, when I'm done, close that tab and come right back to that report. So it's these reports sometimes can work a little bit like checklists. Like if I want to go through and just verify all the information and I'm working my way through that, I can do that a little bit at a time using the report as the functionality to do that. Okay, so we've talked about fan view, we've talked about charts and reports, and still we are just in this tree view section. Now I'm going to share with you next one of my favorite things. And you're going to learn just how much of a nerd I really am. I love maps. And I have loved maps since I was a child, riding around in the car with my grandfather with his big old spiral bound atlas. He had one that was for the whole United States, and I used to just love it. But he also had one that was just for Southern California. So I grew up in Southern California. Both my parents were born and raised in LA. My grandfather was raised there. He was a city engineer and helped like draft some of the streets in the city, but he still had this big atlas because getting around LA in the 1970s, 1980s, even into the 1990s, you needed a map. And I think I fell in love with them. Then when I got into family history as a kid, maps became even more important because one of the vital things about your family history has to do with locations and journeys, right? The spot of dirt that they lived on and the places that they migrated to. And understanding that helps you know that you're chasing the right family, that you're following the right people, that you're not climbing someone else's family tree. And so really becoming familiar with geography is one of the skills that good family historians make the effort to gain. And maps are a great way to do that. Now, one of the other reasons that I love a good map is because you can start to visualize patterns. Now I'm going to reload this page. One of the challenges is my tree is massive, and so it takes it a little bit to load in the map view unless I filter, and I may have to do that. And then because I'm also using Zoom, it's chewing up some of my bandwidth here on my computer. So we're gonna just see if we can get this to load, hopefully. If not, I'll just start playing with some of the filters. Nope, okay. So let's just go to my direct line ancestors and see if we can get it to reload that way. There we go, beautiful. Okay, so one of the things that this map does is it allows you to view different branches of your family tree. So you can view your whole family tree plotted on the map. You can view just direct line. So that means the people in the pedigree view. You can view paternal side or just maternal side. You can view just the end of line people, like where are my brick walls? And then if you've got floating people in your family tree. So there's lots of different ways to filter the data on the map. You can also filter to specific events. So right now I've got it, the default is checked to any event, which means births, marriages, deaths, residence, military, immigration, like any data that I have in my family tree that has a place attached to it, it's going to try and stick it on this map. But let's say I only want to view the birth locations of my direct ancestors. That's like the filters that I want to set in place. And now you can see that the view of the map shifts a little bit. So I am actually not just in the US. If I zoom out, you'll see I've got some stuff happening over here in Europe as well. So there's a little legend, and I'm gonna play with this for just a minute. Nerd out with me, okay? Because seriously, love a good map. This legend over here tells me exactly how many people are represented. And again, kind of like the heat map on the fan chart, the darker the color, the more people are concentrated in that particular place. And you have to remember what filters you have set. Now, remember, for me, the filters I have set are direct ancestors only and birth locations only. And so the vast majority of my direct ancestors in the United States, 333 of them, as a matter of fact, if I hover over, I see a little pop-up that tells me that. I can come over here and it'll tell me that 17 are from France and 37 from Germany and 184 from England, 9 from Ireland, and 12 from Scotland. So it shows me at that level of detail as I move my mouse around the screen. Now watch this. This is where things start to get even more cool. So as you zoom in on a particular country, what you are going to see is that the data is going to shift from being at a country level to being at in the United States case, a state level, whatever the smaller jurisdiction is. Now, one of the reasons why this works is because I've been really clean about how I enter locations into my family tree. I make sure that I always have a city or town, if the event occurred in a city or town, not all do, a county, a state, and the name of the country. So I've standardized the way that I enter all of the birth, marriage, and death locations in my family tree. I also use current day locations in those location fields, regardless of when the event occurred. Now, the historic location goes in the source citation, it goes in my notes, it goes in the description. So I always have that correlation. But the location field for births, marriages, and deaths is the current, where is this spot on a map? And that's what allows this to work for me. So what you're going to see here now is, as I zoomed in on the United States, now I can see exactly which states are covered. And you can see, again, the darker it is, the more people I have from there. 94 in Virginia, and 22 in Tennessee, and 50 in Connecticut, 7 in Arkansas, 6 in Utah, including me, and 3 in California, and 1 in Idaho, right? Like, so you can start to see exactly where those people are from in that particular country. Now, do you want to geek out with me again? If you zoom in on a particular state and you've got your locations entered and standardized and you've done your homework here, it's going to take it a second, but it should load at a county level. Okay, do you see what just happened? So even though I have all those people in Tennessee, they only come from a few specific counties. 10 of them from Hawkins County, 6 of them from Wilson County, 1 from Davidson County, 1 from Cook County, 1, oh, that's North Carolina, okay? So you start to see exactly where the little pockets of your ancestors live. Now, this, again, is filtered right now by direct line ancestors. So it's not everybody in my tree. I could switch it to just my dad's side. So then it would be everybody in my tree on my dad's side, or everybody in my mom's tree on, or in my tree on my mom's side. And I've only got birth locations selected. Think about all the possibilities for playing around with this map and the insights you could gain about where you might need to do some additional research, or what places you might need to become more familiar with. If you've got brick walls, right? So I've got an end of line filter option here. So I can switch it to just end of line. And we're going to give it a second to catch up with me. We're going to zoom out. Again, mine's running a little slow because I'm on Zoom. There we go. Okay, it's catching up. It's adjusted the legend. There we go. It'll catch up to me. Okay, you'll start to see some color pop up here. But that will tell you, like, oh, like I have a lot of end of line people in Ireland, or a lot of end of line people in Germany, or a lot of end of line people in Virginia. That is an indication that you might need to learn a little bit more about records in that place, in that time, so that you know what is available for you to discover. And if you don't speak German, or don't know how to access Irish records, that's a great opportunity to maybe consider consulting with a professional genealogist who specializes in those things, because they can give you some great tips and help you craft a research plan around some of those things. Okay, so that's fun with maps. I encourage you, if you have Pro Tools already, to play with it. If you don't have Pro Tools already, like in my opinion, totally biased, but still my opinion, like that map feature is worth the cost alone, because it gives you this really cool insight into all of the different ways that you can slice and dice the data in your tree to look for patterns. Really super valuable. Okay, I'm going to pause really quickly and hop into the Q&A for just a minute before we dive into the list of all people, which is a really great feature that I love so much, and has lots of functionality. And let's see what we've got. Does each individual source come into play? Questions are jumping here. I don't remember who asked it, but the question was, does each individual source come into play when, there we go, Judy, when mapping? Yes. So if you've got any event checked, which is the default, it's all of the events in the timeline for every person in your tree. So birth events, death events, and marriage events, of course, are the three primary, what we call vital events. But if you've got residence facts, if you've got military facts, if you've got immigration facts, if you've added custom facts about something, any event you've entered into your tree with a location entered, that's going to be placed on the map. You can, of course, then filter it to birth, marriage, or death if you want to just look at those vital facts on the map. But it is going to map almost all of those things. Okay. Okay. What other questions do we have about the mapping feature or? Okay, still seeing lots of, y'all have lots of questions about lots of things. I feel like I need to take this Q&A list and download it and start making little social media content over on my Instagram page that just answers like little questions about random things. Or maybe we need to schedule an Ask Me Anything, one of these sessions where I just spend an hour answering all sorts of random questions. But let's try and like stay focused on the topic in the Q&A if we can. That's going to make it easier for the stellar social support team that has already answered 133 of your questions. They're doing a great job. Okay. So Marianne is asking, does the map go down to cities or streets? No. So currently, it goes down to a county level because it's just looking for those patterns. That was kind of the reason it was designed. But that's an interesting idea. So again, if you've got specific feedback about what you'd like it to do, by all means, give us that feedback and we'll add it to the mix of things that we think about or consider. Okay, Bernadette's asking, can you jump to a list of people in each location? Bernadette, thank you for asking that question because it is the perfect segue to the next thing that I want to share with you, which is the list of all people in your tree. Now, this list is available to anyone, whether you have a subscription or not, whether you, like even if you just have a tree, you have the list of all people. However, if you have Pro Tools, there are some additional filters and features on this list of all people page that I'll walk through for you for the next few minutes before we wrap up. Okay, so this list of all people is going to show you or give you it's the portal into how many people you have in your tree. If you have fewer than 10,000 people in your tree, you could theoretically go page by page. If I scrolled down to the bottom, like you would see, I could go page by page. Here we go. Down to the bottom of, I think it's 50 or 100 people per page. 100 people per page. I could go page by page through that if I wanted to. Nobody wants to do that. There's no need to do that. So that's, again, one of the purposes of Pro Tools is as your tree grows, you need ways to manage this data better. So of course, everyone has the ability to search their tree by name. So I could come in here and I could search for Crista. That's my name, in case you forgot. And I could search for everybody that has Crista as a first name or a middle name, everybody that has Crista as a surname in my tree, or everybody that has Crista anywhere in their name. And that would give me a list of all the people in my tree with that name. Spoiler alert, I'm the only person in my tree with my name spelled my way. There's a few of us, but not spelled that way. C, no H. Okay, so everybody has the ability to do that. However, we needed to provide you with some additional ways to filter large amounts of tree data. And that is where, and you decide what big means to you, that's where Pro Tools comes in. So it allows you to start to filter by any number of things. The first one is by family line. So just like on the map, you have the ability to filter to just your direct line ancestors. And when I do that, then I get the list of 806 people that are my direct ancestors. Direct line just means anybody who, when you describe the relationship to you, includes the word parent. Parent, grandparent, great-grandparent, so on and so forth, okay? That's a direct line. Paternal is everybody on my dad's side of the tree, not just direct, but all the aunts and uncles and cousins and everybody on his side. Maternal. End of line, those are your brick walls, right? Those are the people where the tree ends and there's no parents behind them. And then people without relationships. So those are what we call, and those of you who are a little bit more advanced are familiar with this concept, we call them floating people or floating trees within your tree. So it's when you've created a person or a tree inside your tree because you're trying to figure out how this group of people are related to your main family tree. And so a lot of us kind of create those little islands or floating people in our tree. Okay, so that's the family line filter that you can use. The other filter, and I think this answers the last question that was asked, is you can now filter with Pro Tools your list to people from specific places or people within specific year ranges. So for example, I could say, show me everybody in my tree who was born between 1800 and 1825. And it will filter my list of everybody in my tree down to the 2,466 people that were born in that 25-year range. Then I could get even more specific and I could say, really, I only want to see the people born in that time period in the state of North Carolina. And now I'm just looking at the 178 people in my tree born in that particular date range in that specific place. Do you see how valuable this could be? If I'm headed to North Carolina to visit the state archive and I've got a list of people in my tree that I know were born there, I can then take this and I can take this filtered list and know exactly who I need to be doing a little bit of research ahead of time so that I can make the most of my time when I'm sitting in that archive accessing those records that are not yet available online. Or, I mean, there's a million scenarios, right? That's just the one that immediately comes to my mind because I really want to take a research trip to North Carolina. Okay, you can reset those filters at any time, get back to the full list, and then play around with the different filters. You can filter just by place. You can filter by specific dates or date ranges. One example, since it's Veterans Day week when we're recording this together, is there are date ranges for when somebody might have served in a particular conflict or had to have registered for the draft. So for example, we know everybody born, all males in the United States born, I think it's between 1872 maybe and 1900 had to register for the World War I draft. And everybody born between 1878 and 19, no, more than that. Anyway, had to register for the World War II draft. Like you can start to play around with those kinds of parameters to pull up a list of, okay, I should have a draft card for every one of these people. And I can now use this as a task list or a checklist. And if you're anything like me, you love a good checklist. I love to-do lists. Okay, now we're going to get to one of the really, really powerful features of Pro Tools, which is the error checker. So this is, again, in the list of all people, another way to view all of the information in your tree filtered to a subset. And in this case, the subset that we're filtering to is possible errors. We all make them. Some of us made more of them when we were getting started and are still cleaning up some of those messes. Some of us have just gotten started and we weren't quite sure what we were doing and we don't even know we have messes in our tree yet. So this will help highlight that and give you some direction about where to go. Some of us have built these really big trees, like we've been chasing our ancestors and all of their descendants and our DNA matches, and we built these trees and we didn't even realize that this person we entered in our tree over here and this person we entered in our tree over here as a child in this family and as a spouse in this family are actually the same person. And so our tree starts to have these interconnections that we weren't even aware of. And so possible duplicates is one of the ways that we can see where those things start to show up. Now, the less information you have about a person, the more likely it's going to be suggested as a duplicate, and it might not be. The more information you have about a person, the easier and faster the system's going to say, yep, these are the same person. So anytime you filter your list for any of these errors, you're going to see this little exclamation point here. And when you click on that exclamation point, it's going to open up the profile page of that person in your tree. The side panel is going to pop out and it's going to show you, we think this person could be a duplicate of this person. And so I then need to review both of these people. Now, the fastest and easiest way to do that is, so I've got the profile page for this person open. I'm going to right click here and open this person in the other tab. And that way I can quickly toggle back and forth between what I know about this person and what I know about this person to decide if they are a duplicate person or not. Now, in this case, I suspect not. And part of the reason is because I don't have enough information about Laura, the wife of Finis. And so I probably need to go find her in a census, probably in the 1920 census, and fill out some basic birth information, and then I would have a better idea. But in this case, I'm not certain, so I'm not going to do anything. I can't say, no, she's not a duplicate. I can't say, yes, she is a duplicate, so I'm just going to let it sit there until I go do the work. Okay. Again, I love a good checklist, so I'm the kind of person who would want to do that every time I looked at one of them, but I won't take the time to do that right now. Now, if you realize that they are duplicates, when you click that review button, it'll walk you through the process of merging those two people into one person. And it's a pretty simple process. It'll just tell you which information you're going to accept as the primary information and which information will be copied over as the duplicate information for that particular merge. Okay. Okay. The other filters here under possible errors. You all are going to see the mess that is my tree right now. You ready for this? Is people with no sources. So there's people in the tree that don't have an actual source citation or an ancestry source attached. And that includes people where you've only copied stuff from other trees. We'll look at that in a minute. But the idea is every time you add a person to your tree, you want to make sure that you know they belong there, make sure they really are who you say they are, that those are really their relatives. You want to make sure that the information you're adding about them is accurate. And Ancestry does our best to help you do that. And part of that is by providing you with hints, giving you access, if you have a family history subscription, to all of the records on the site so that you can search for information. And every time you save or attach one of those hints or search results to your tree, that creates a source citation for that person. So here are all the people in my tree that do not have a source citation. Now, there's a few reasons why that happens, okay? For me, I started doing my tree long before Ancestry trees came online 20 years ago. And so I have source citations that I've typed into my notes and written up, but I haven't actually added them to my Ancestry tree yet. So I have quite a bit of work to do there, and I'm chipping away at it. So that's one reason. Another reason is you could have people where you've added them, but there's not an actual ancestry record to add to the tree. And so you need to create your own source citation. And so that is a fairly simple thing to do. Here's an example of an enslaved person in my tree. I've added them to my tree because they were enslaved by one of my ancestors. And I've added a web link so that I can see this is the 6 times great grandfather of mine that enslaved this person. Now, I got his name out of his will. I could attach this source to him, and then he would have a source. I've personally chosen not to because I want to find records, other records about him. And so what I could do is I could just come in here and I could add a source manually that lists out that he is mentioned in this record created for and by and about this other person. Okay, so there's lots of different ways to approach it. That's just how I personally have chosen to approach it, which means this list of all people with no sources is something that I have to work my way through in order to make sure that the data that I'm entering in my tree is accurate, make sure that I'm not creating Franken people, amalgamations of people that aren't really a real person. That's one of the ways we create our own brick walls in family history. So working your way through these people with no sources is a great way to clean up your family tree. There's also an option here for people with only tree sources. So those are people where you've copied the data from someone else's tree. And so the only source citation that exists is someone else's tree. You'll notice I have none of those. That is one place where I'm very meticulous. I never want to just copy information from another person's tree. I keep it open in another window. I very carefully review it and decide what goes in my tree and what doesn't, and I manually enter that information. Again, that's just my personal, how I do my workflow. And then there is this category of other possible errors. And when you filter to that list and then click through to view them by clicking the exclamation point, it will tell you exactly what those other possible errors are. And there's a few that are kind of lumped together. And if you have questions, you can always ask us. Ancestry has a Facebook page. You can reach us there. There are, I have a Facebook page. I have an Instagram account. You can send DMs. There are community groups on Ancestry. There are Facebook groups of Ancestry users. Lots of ways that you can reach out if you have questions about any of those errors and need to know how to fix them in your tree and aren't quite sure. But read through them. Usually you can figure it out. Okay, in addition to these tree errors, those of you who have Pro Tools are going to have a tree rating. So you can see right up here, I have this tree rating. My tree is currently at a 7.0, and it's because I'm still working through adding all those old source citations with Ancestry records in my tree, and because I've got a little chunk of duplicates that I need to keep working through. And so getting my tree score up is one of my goals for 2025. And you can follow along with me on that if you'd like on social media. I've started sharing some of those things out about ways that I do that. So that is kind of how you access the list of all people, how you use it with some of those Pro Tools filters to work your way through all of those things. Now, the other filters here in the list of all people, the ones that do not say Pro next to them, every one of you have all of those filters. Those filters are all based on the tree tags. So every single person in your tree, you have the ability to add tags. And I hope you're using them. These are probably one of the most underrated but powerful features on Ancestry that is accessible to everyone right now. Like, you do not have to have a subscription at all to utilize my tree tags. It's one of the free features, and we give you the ability to use that in your filters. There are some set tags, so explore those, some different research statuses and life experiences. There are DNA tags, so you can tag your matches and your common ancestors and the path between them. And then you can create up to, I think it's 80 custom tags. And so you can see I've got all sorts of tags that I've created here. Some are for workflow, like things like start here and check notes and transcribe records, like some just workflow things. Some are about particular life experiences that I wanted to add to the list. Some are research, like people that I tag for Like the next time I'm in the Family History Library up in Salt Lake, or the next time I'm in the State Archive in Virginia, I can create those. So if you're not using tags, I strongly encourage you to start doing that. Again, that is actually a free feature, but that filter set is available here in the list of all people as well. Okay, last couple of minutes, I just want to talk about the kind of final thing. If you joined a little bit late, or if you just need a refresher, if you already have Pro Tools on your Ancestry homepage, there is a widget that will take you to this list or view of all the different Pro Tools. We've talked today about Tree Checker, so that's that error checker. We've talked about those smart filters that allow you to filter down to different groups of people in your tree. We've talked about charts and reports, Tree Mapper. We've talked about fan charts. If you're interested in exploring your insights, these are kind of just fun data facts from your tree, but sometimes it also reveals a few errors you might have made in your tree. So in my case, the most common surname in my tree is Shipman, followed by Jones, Lawrence, and Smith. Actually, the second most common name in my tree is 5 underscores, and that's because I have a lot of women in my tree where I haven't quite figured out their maiden name, and so I drop that in there so that I know I've got a missing piece of information. You can scroll down this page and explore those for yourself. They're going to be a little bit different for every tree. But the last feature that I want to talk to you about is what we call enhanced shared matches. And this is a place where your DNA features start to combine with your family tree features in a really powerful way. So next month for this webinar, we're going to be doing these more and more often. We did 3 in October. If you missed those were beginner webinars. You can access those at ancestry.com/education. Ancestry.com/education. You can access the Family Tree Building 101. So if you're a beginner and found your way here, you can watch that video. And then Ancestry DNA 101. Those videos are both on the bottom of the page. You can watch the replays of those. On that same page, you can register for the December webinar. The December webinar is going to be the next step in DNA. So we did DNA 101. The next step is taking this match list and actually using it to make meaningful, powerful family history discoveries. And we'll talk a lot about creating custom groups. We'll talk about notes. We'll talk about shared matches. And then the feature that is Pro Tools related is the enhanced shared matches. And we'll cover that as well. But because this is a Pro Tools specific course, I will just give you a little bit of a sneak peek into that today as we wrap up, which is this. When you share DNA with any one of your matches, and these are my immediate family members. They've all given permission for me to use them as examples when I do things like this. So there's my parents and my siblings. And as I work my way down, then I start to see my aunts and uncles and my grandmother, and then some of my cousins. Now I can go into view any match on my match list. And I can look at the matches I have in common with that person. So in this case, this is my paternal grandmother. And when I go to click on shared matches, again, anybody who has taken a DNA test and has any level of Ancestry subscription can see this list of the shared matches. But if you have Pro Tools, your shared match list will now have an extra column. So people with any other subscription just have shared matches and how much DNA you share. People that have the Pro Tools now have this enhanced shared match list with this third column. And what that's showing you is not just how much DNA you share with this person, but how much DNA your match shares with this person as well. And a brand new feature that just rolled out over the course of the last couple of weeks is I can now sort by that third column. If you've spent any time working with your DNA matches, you already know how powerful that is to helping you figure out who your matches are, how you're related to them, and how some of these people could help you break through really important brick walls in your family tree. So again, we'll be covering that in December. And if you haven't registered for that webinar yet, you can do that at ancestry.com/education. Okay, well, that is, how does an hour go so fast, y'all? So here's what I need you to do before you go. There are a whole lot of you here, so this is going to fill up the chat really fast, and that's okay. I'm going to download the chat later and read it because I want to hear what you have to say. But I want to know what one thing you learned today. If you would type that into the chat, that is super beneficial to me. It helps me know if you're actually learning things. It helps me make sure that as we continue doing these webinars that I'm pacing things correctly. But also, because I'm an educator, I know there is some real value in articulating what you learned. So you typing it out means you're more likely to remember it. So if you would just take a minute, I see lots of things flying in, and let us know what one new thing in the chat, what one new thing you learned today. That's super valuable. If you're watching the recording of this, go ahead and add it in the comments on the YouTube channel. Again, it's super valuable for me and the team here at Ancestry, super valuable for you to articulate that. Well, it has been delightful to spend another hour with you. Again, thank you for joining us. This Ancestry virtual event series, I think it's going to become a real thing. So keep an eye on that education page, and your emails will be sure to let you know when new webinars are scheduled and what those topics are so that you can participate as you need to. That's all I have for you today. Until next time, I'm Crista Cowan. That's C-No-H. Crista Cowan. You can find me around the internet. I'd love to hear from you. And I will be back here next month with a class about your DNA matches. Have fun climbing your family tree. Bye, everyone.